All right. Well, thank you all for being here. I know it's really miserable out, and sometimes it's hard to come on out in the rain. So I appreciate you all being there. Yes, 2, 3, 2, 1. Yeah. Alan's got it. Don't worry. We're good. So I watched my first Harry Potter movie this week. Which apparently qualifies me for preaching about Harry Potter. I don't know if you know this, but you can get like Spark Notes on Harry Potter. There's a bunch of kids in Harvard apparently sitting around writing Spark Notes about Harry Potter. You can find loads of stuff on the internet. There's a book called The Gospel According to Harry Potter, which I purchased and used a little bit of. So there's a lot of really good stuff out there to help me, a muggle, try and figure this all out. So I had a slide that says, all you have to do is walk straight at the barrier between platforms 9 and 10. Best do it at a bit of a run if you're nervous. Mrs. Weasley said that. So this is me, man. I am running at the barrier because I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm just going to hope that I can get through that wall and figure this out. So hopefully you will give me a little bit of latitude here and a little bit of patience. As someone who's never read a Harry Potter book, and until last week, who's never watched a Harry Potter movie, I'm here trying to make sense of this series of books that many of you know far better than I do. And so as a teacher and a student, what I did was I approached it just as I would any other sermon or learning opportunity. And for me, that means that I've got to read, I've got to study and look at it and try and analyze it from different perspectives. And so, I treated Harry Potter as scripture, basically. And so I just kind of went into it and tried to figure it out from that perspective, reading different people's comments and things like that. The Google machine is amazing, right? The Google machine just gives you anything you want. So that has been really, really helpful. So I tried to approach with an open mind and really to find the willingness, to have this willingness to find some truth in it. Because really truth is what we're after, right? And if God is the ultimate truth, and if God is omnipresent, then I should be able to find truth even in Harry Potter. And there is a quote from, I guess there's a play, right? The Cursed Child. And so there's a quote from that play that says, "The truth is a beautiful and terrible thing and should therefore be treated with great caution." And so I am going to treat this with great caution and try and do my best to find us some truth here. So here we go. As I said, be patient with me as I try to muggle my way through this. And there are going to be spoilers, just a warning. I give away some really important parts. So if you haven't seen this, don't leave, stay. But just beware. So today we look at the deepest of magics. We look at love, right? And Dumbledore tells Harry, "Do not pity the dead, Harry, pity the living, and above all, those who live without love." And so there's this theme of love that runs through Harry Potter. There's the love of magic. There's living with love and living without love. All of these themes run through Harry Potter stories, and we find the love found in friendship, the love of parent and child, the love of power, and even the love of darkness. But one of the most interesting themes that I found in this is the theme of sacrificial love. And if you're familiar with the Sorcerer's Stone, at the very end, when Harry faces Quirrell and learns that Voldemort had been inhabiting Quirrell's body, Harry also learns that his touch can kill. And Dumbledore tells him, while Harry's in the hospital, Dumbledore tells him, "Your mother died to save you. If there is one thing Voldemort cannot understand, it is love. He didn't realize that love as powerful as your mother's for you leaves its own mark. Not a scar, no visible sign. To have been loved so deeply, even though the person who loved us is gone, will give us some protection forever. It is in your very skin." So Dumbledore explains why Harry was able to survive Quirrell's attack, why he was able to kill Quirrell. And this protection is in his skin. It's also why Harry was able to survive Voldemort's killing curse after Voldemort killed both of Harry's parents. And so it was Lily Potter's decision to sacrifice herself for her son that created this protection over Harry, a protection that Voldemort had not accounted for, and it was this protection that placed in Harry's skin that resulted in Voldemort nearly destroying himself. And so Voldemort he's incapable of understanding love. And despite the many similarities between him and Harry, it's his inability to love that really separates him from Harry. And so while Harry is able to be a loyal friend, to love and depend upon Hermione and Ron, Voldemort is all alone. He's forever isolated by his refusal to acknowledge the magic of love. In The Half-Blood Prince, Dumbledore tells Harry, "You are protected, in short, by your ability to love." And Harry shows us throughout the series that he's able to love. He's able to love his parents, his friends, and perhaps even his enemies, as we see his compassion at the very end for the dying shell of Voldemort. So Harry's ability to love, that was a spoiler, by the way. Harry's ability to love is the deepest of magics, right? In the Order of the Phoenix, Dumbledore tells Harry of a room in the Department of Mysteries, and he said, this room is kept locked at all times. It contains a force that is at once more wonderful and more terrible than death, than human intelligence, than forces of nature. It is also perhaps the most mysterious of the many subjects for study that resides there. And that force, of course, is love. Now, while love may be a prevalent theme of the Harry Potter series, it's also the central theme of the teaching of Jesus. Jesus tells us how important love is on more than one occasion. In John 15, chapter 12, we read, "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." This is sacrificial love. This is what Jesus is speaking of. It's a love that he will one day demonstrate through his crucifixion. It's a love that's demonstrated throughout Harry Potter series. First we see it in the love that Lily Potter shows for her son when she gives her own life to protect him. This act of love that has lasting power in the life of Harry. An act that will ultimately protect him throughout his life. We see it again in Harry's willingness to protect his friends from the danger that he must ultimately face. We see it too in Dobby, who gives his life in seeking to save Harry and his friends. Frankly, we see it in the character of all of Harry's allies as they all place themselves in danger to help Harry. But it's this sacrifice of Lily Potter that seems most profound. Her death in some way transformed Harry. Her death made Harry different. It was her sacrificial love that protected Harry from the evil of Voldemort. As Christians, we know the effect that sacrificial love can have. In 1 John chapter 5, 18 through 20, we read, "We know that those who are born of God do not sin, but the one who is born of God protects them, and the evil one does not touch them. We know that we are God's children, and that the whole world lies under the power of the evil one. And we know that the Son of God has come and has given us understanding so that we may know him who is true. And we are in him who is true, in his Son Jesus Christ. He is the true God and eternal life." So we are the children of God, and we live in this world of sin and darkness, a world that at times seems like it is under the power of evil and dark forces. We're surrounded by Snapes, people who seem to be against us, or maybe they're for us. We just can't be sure where their loyalties lie. Surrounded by quarrels, those who intentionally deceive us to hide their ill intent. Surrounded by Voldemorts, those who rather we weren't here, people who dislike our faith, dislike all that we stand for, and they see us as what is wrong with the world. We don't meet their idea of Christian values. We don't believe the gospel they believe. Our truth is not their truth. And for this, they would rather we did not inhabit this building or this city, or perhaps they would rather we just didn't exist. So we're surrounded by all of this all the time. But we know that the one who was born of God protects us, and that evil and darkness do not touch us. We have this special protection that comes from the saving grace of Christ, protection that flows from the shedding of Jesus' blood on the cross into us. The life and love of Jesus Christ continues to live in us today, and it is that love that protects us from evil. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't sin or that bad things aren't going to happen. We will most certainly miss the mark. We will do things that are not Christ-like, things that are not Christian. We are, of course, human. We have flaws and we make mistakes. We at times find ourselves without a connection to God. We lose the feeling of the Spirit, or we choose to ignore it, and we will undoubtedly fall in some way. Or maybe something in this world gets the better of us, someone wrongs us or hurts us, sickness and disease affect us and our families. Bad things will happen. These are the realities of the world and of our human connections. Now, Harry was not evil like Voldemort. But Harry also wasn't an angel. Harry broke rules. Harry at times missed the mark. I was reading, and I found it really interesting. The students who were in Slytherin, they were more concerned about rules than the students who were in Gryffindor. Right? They were always talking about the rules and who was breaking the rules, but Harry was out there breaking the rules all of the time. And so, Harry's not perfect, just like we're not perfect. And he missed the mark just like we missed the mark. But there was this love in Harry, and when Harry acted from this place of love, he overcame the evil in his world. He had the protection of his mother's sacrificial love. That love and that sacrifice shaped Harry, whether he realized it or not. And so, when our time comes, we can know that we are protected by the one who knows God. We have been shaped by the sacrificial love of Christ. And in the end, we can know that because Christ conquered death, we too can conquer death. In so many ways, we are like Harry. While we are children of God, we are not angels. We make mistakes. But we were saved by the sacrificial love of Jesus. We were given the gift and the power of love, a power that can overcome the evil in the world, a power that can overcome death. The love of Harry's mother is what differentiated Harry from Voldemort. And it's the love of Christ that differentiates us from those around us. So Harry, while saved by love, he did not experience love in his lifetime. At least not that he could remember, right? He was orphaned as a baby, raised in an environment where he wasn't loved at all. He was shoved in a closet under the stairs. He was treated like a servant, and he was always reminded of how he wasn't wanted and that he wasn't loved. And this is so similar to the way that Voldemort was raised, right? This was not unlike the life of Tom Riddle. Tom was conceived through the coercive use of a love potion. His mother died in childbirth, and his father ran off. So Tom grew up as an orphan and was raised in an orphanage where he too was deprived of love. So we have two boys with very similar upbringings, right? Both deprived of love. Love that's so important to the development of a child. But these two boys did not respond to this lack of love in the same way. Harry would choose to love, while Tom would become Voldemort. Harry lived in the light while Tom lived in the darkness. I mean, it's curious how two people who suffered great loss and who were deprived of love could end up so different. But the difference, of course, is in the choices that they made. Harry chose to hold on to hope, to hold on to the idea of love, while Tom chose to turn himself off to the idea of love. Harry held on to this dream that he could save the world, while Tom, or Voldemort, dreamt of destroying the world. Harry embraced love, while Voldemort embraced anger and hate. Harry lived into what could be, while Voldemort chose to live in the darkness of his past. You know, in preparation for today, Andrew provided me with some notes, and they were awesome because it was a lot of explaining of the story and the characters. But there was one thing in there that he wrote in particular about today's topic, and I thought it was really wonderful. He said that many of us have faced the death of a loved one as well as the abandonment of those who no longer love us. But each is given in some way a choice to continue to choose the path of love and its deep magic, or to lash out in the pain of loss. That really spoke to me in a lot of different ways. This month is 2 years since my daughter passed away. It's also 2 years since my marriage ended. So there were so many reasons at that time for me to lash out, you know, to be angry, to get even. And there were moments that seemed like the thing to do. There were moments when I thought that throwing away more than a decade of sobriety was a good idea. Moments when I thought that there just wasn't anything worth living for. It was by far the darkest part of my life. You know, I have relied upon a recovery community for 13 years now. And at that time in my life, not even that community could help me because I felt so different and so isolated. No one could possibly have known the loss that I felt. No one could have possibly understood the hurt that I felt. And so there was no one that I felt could help me. You know, no one that could save me from that darkness. But love saved me. Every day, the love of God, the love of friends and family saved me. Your love saved me. I mean, it was the kindness and the generosity of this place, the unconditional love that I found here, that picked me up and carried me forward. I think that on some level, I chose to accept the love that was offered to me. It would have been very easy to lock myself up in my apartment, to not let anybody in, to not answer the phone, to not come here. But that's not what I chose to do. On some level, I felt like I had no other choice but to accept your love. I had no other choice but to move forward. Not once, but every day. And so I think we all reach those places where it seems so dark and so lonely that we want to lash out. We want to lash out at those that have hurt us. We want to lash out at ourselves. And most of all, we want to lash out at God. Right? Why has God done this? Where was God when my daughter was taken from me? Or where was God in this awful relationship? Or what happened to the protection against evil that I was promised? Where are you? You know? So many people would come to me and say things like, it's all part of God's plan. God needed another angel. What? What? So God did this? But that's not what I believe. I don't believe that God did that. I don't believe that God is the reason for the bad things that happen in this world. Bad things happen. There are bad people. There is disease. There is all kinds of darkness in this world that is not of God. we're going to get hurt. I know personally, I try very hard to not let people in so that I don't get hurt. But you know what? I get hurt anyway. There's nothing I can do to stop from being hurt. So we're going to get hurt. That's just how it is. But there's love. There is always love. And if we choose love, we can see the promise of God's protection. We may not be saved from loss or sickness or pain, but we are healed through love. We're healed through the love of those around us. A love that originates with God and flows freely if we are open to receiving it. We started with Dumbledore telling Harry, "Do not pity the dead, pity the living. And above all, those who live without love." I mean, what must it be like to live without love? What must it be like to look at those who live without their basic needs met and not feel love? What must it be like to see families traveling hundreds of miles to seek safety from violence and not feel love? What must it be like to look at this planet that regularly faces the extinction of some of God's creatures and not feel love? What must it be like to look at those who are different from us and not feel love? I don't want to find out. Let's not find out. Because Jesus has called us to love one another. There's no qualifier. Love one another. So to answer that call, we're to act with love. We can look at the people at the border and say, what is the loving thing to do? We can look at our neighbors who live in tents just down the street here, and we can say, how can I love them? How can I help them with love? We can look at the person who has hurt us and ask, what is hurting them that led them to hurt me? How can I love them? I often think about those bracelets. What would Jesus do? And I don't know if you remember, but there was like all kinds of stuff with WWJD on it, right? It was like everywhere. It was like, it was on cars. It was like, in the fish thing. It was everywhere. And so I think about that, and right now, like, it seems like this thing of the past, this trite thing that was so long ago, and what would Jesus do? But seriously, what would Jesus do? Would Jesus love the person who's forced to live on the street? Would Jesus love the family fleeing violence? Would Jesus love the person that I so vehemently disagree with? Would Jesus love me? We are each loved, and in turn, we are to love each other. The sacrifice of Jesus, the sacrifice of God, it's left a mark on us. It's not visible like a scar, but rather it lives in our skin, in our heart, in our spirit. It's love. God's love lives within us. When we lose touch with that love, when we forget that God has left this mark of love on us, then we live without love. But when we stay connected to God, when we remember that we have been marked with God's love, when we recall the sacrificial love of Jesus, when we live with love and that love flows freely to everyone we meet. Harry chose love. Voldemort didn't. Harry lived into that love and did not give up on the hope that one day love would win out over evil. We're called by God to choose love. God's love is our hope. God's love is our hope for a better world. It's our hope for realizing that the kingdom the kingdom here on earth. That's God's love. It's our hope for that kingdom that is to come. God's love is our hope that one day love will win and everyone will have all they need. Everyone will be safe from violence and evil. God's love is our hope for a planet that can be home to all of God's creatures. You will continue to be faced with whether or not to choose love. You will be hurt and you will feel pain. I wish it wasn't so. People will disappoint you. People will use you. But God has protected you. God has marked you with love, a love that can heal all hurts, a love that relieves all pain. But every day, you will have to choose love. You will have this choice to choose whether or not you accept the suffering and embrace the darkness that follows, or to choose the love of God and those around you so that you can heal and feel whole. Every day, it's your choice. Choose love.